The next night, when all the serious news about wars and oil prices and world food supplies had been talked about on the CBS Evening News, the anchorman looked into the camera and smiled. He said, "It is believed by many that the word quiz was made up in 1791 by a Dublin theatre manager named Daly. He had bet someone that he could invent a brand new word in the English language, and he chalked up the letters Q-U-I-Z onto every wall and building in town. The next morning, there it was, and within a week, people all over Ireland were wondering what it could mean, and a new word had been created. Quiz is the only word in English that was invented by one person for no particular reason. That is, until now. Now there is a new word, Frindle. And here is Alice Lunderson in Westfield, New Hampshire, with the story." Alice came on the screen with a short introduction. Then, right there on TV, Miss Granger and Nick and Bud Lawrence and Nick's mom were talking to 20 million people about Frindles. One of those 20 million people was the producer of The Late Show with David Letterman. And another one of those 20 million people was a staff writer for People magazine, and another was a writer for 321 Contact magazine for kids. Dozens of other writers and producers were marketing people saw that story on the news, and all of them smelled a great story. During the next 3 weeks, every man, woman, and child in America heard about this funny new word that kids were using instead of the word pen. And kids in Ohio and Iowa and New York and Texas and California started using it too. Bud Lawrence was suddenly flooded with orders for anything with the word Frindle on it, and he quickly got interested again. But there were some complications. Bud's lawyer said, "You see that stack of orders there? Trouble. That's what it is. We got a trademark filed, but it's only like an application. The whole country knows that this little kid made up the word, and unless you make a deal with his dad, you're going to end up with nothing, maybe even a big fat lawsuit. That kid owns that word." So here's a picture of Nick at David Letterman's TV show. Imagine if that were you, a 3rd or 4th grader up on TV. That'd be crazy. When Mr. Allen came home at lunchtime, his wife told him that he had to call Bud Lawrence. It's something about the new word. This was not good news to Tom Allen. He was sick and tired of all the fuss, and being away from the hardware store so much while all this nonsense was happening had put him weeks behind on his paperwork. He'd be lucky now to get his Christmas order in time. Even though he didn't really want anything to do with it, Bud was an old friend. So on the way back to the store, Nick's dad went to Bud Lawrence's office. "Tom, good to see you," said Bud. He stood up and walked around the desk to shake hands. "Have a seat." Tom sat down uneasily, and Bud pulled over another chair. "Ever seen Westfield so stirred up about anything in your life? You and Guinea must be pretty proud of that boy of yours." Bud couldn't remember Nick's name. Tom shifted in his chair and nodded. "Yes, he's quite something, that's for sure. But I tell you, Bud, I'm ready for all this just to die down and blow away. Too much fuss." Instantly, Bud saw how to get what he wanted. "Well, Tom, I'm afraid it's really not going to go away. Looks like something started up and people are real interested. You probably saw those bright red ballpoints around town with the word Frindle on them. That was my doing. Just testing the waters, but your boy, he owns that word. I got my lawyer to apply for a trademark a few weeks back, but because it's just the way I am. New things come along. I like to be right in the middle of it." He grinned at Tom Allen, and Tom smiled back weakly. "Right now, I got a shirt printer in Massachusetts and another one in Chicago and another one in Los Angeles making t-shirts with the word Frindle above a picture of a pen. I mean, a Frindle. Each supplier has orders so far for over 20,000 shirts. Profit on every one of those is going to be $2, maybe $3. And I'm talking with some big pen and pencil companies in Hong Kong and Japan about a deal that could be worth some really big money. They've seen this Frindle thing on the media, and they want to buy the rights to the trademark and make a new line of Frindles for kids. I'm not kidding. This is a hot idea." Bud guessed right. Just the thought of all of this made Tom shrink back uncomfortably in his chair. This was way too much fuss. So I want you to stop here. We know that Bud Lawrence, this big fancy guy with a bunch of money. We know he's trying to trick Nick's dad into giving him the trademark so that he can own the word and make all this money from it. Do you think that Nick's dad is going to give him the word because he doesn't want any fuss, or do you think that Nick's dad is going to stay strong and want to keep Nick the owner of the word? And let's see what happens. Tom, let me be direct with you. As the boy's guardian, you need to do the right thing about all this. I'd like to see where all this is going to go. I'm going to take some risks, spend some money, and see what happens. But I need your permission. I need your signature on all these trademark papers, and I need you to strike a deal with you about permission to use the trademark. I know it seems like a big ruckus about the word, but we just can't tell what's going to come of it unless we take some steps. Bud pointed at the papers on his desk. That's a contract, and it's fair and honest. It gives your boy 30% of whatever profits I make. That's a fair royalty. Generous for this kind of deal. So what do you say? Make sense? Let me take care of all the fuss and see if some good doesn't maybe come out of it all. The papers and a pen were there on the desk next to Tom. He looked at Bud, then reached over, picked up the pen, and signed both copies of the trademark papers and 3 copies of the contract. I've got no reason to doubt you one bit, Bud, and I'm sure do not want to mess with any of this myself. Is that it? He asked, standing up. Not quite. Tom, here. And then Bud handed Nick's dad a check for $2,250. What's this for? That's what I owe Nick for the sales of the Frindles for the first 3 weeks, explained Bud with a smile. Tom looked at the check and said, This is terrific, Bud, but I'm really glad about it because it'll sure help with Nick's college. But I wish you'd keep this between us. If Nick knew, he'd probably stop mowing lawns and I'd never get him to save another penny. So it's just between us, okay? Bud said, Sure, Tom, I understand. Just between us. And they shook hands. Mr. Allen left Bud's office and walked across the street to the savings bank. He set up a trust account for Nick, and the bank manager said he could make arrangements with Mr. Lawrence so any other money would be deposited automatically. That sounded good to Tom Allen. If he never heard another word about it, that would be fine. As Nick's dad walked away slowly to the hardware store, he wondered if things were ever going to be the same in this quiet little town again. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in our next video. Bye!